Good morning, or good day, whenever you're watching this. Today we're moving forward in the life of Christ, or the last week of Jesus' life on earth before the crucifixion. And like I said yesterday, today we're going to look at the betrayal by Judas and the denial of Jesus by Peter. Jesus predicted both of these events. He said to them both, "You're going to do this." And they both denied that they would do it. Peter was emphatic about it. "I will never do this. I'll die with you, Jesus." Well, we know the story. Let's talk about Judas first. The name Judas is synonymous with betrayal. And you know the story that Judas made a deal with the religious leaders of Israel that for 30 pieces of silver he would betray Jesus. He would hand him over and provide an opportunity, because the religious leaders were looking for an opportunity to grab Jesus. But they knew the crowds would not be happy about it. So Judas provided that opportunity for 30 pieces of silver. Well, it happened in the Garden of Gethsemane. After Jesus' prayer that we talked about yesterday, is there any other way? And obviously the answer was no. This is the only way. This is the way we plan, Jesus. That's what his father said to him. Well, Judas leaves, the religious leader leaves the soldiers. They have clubs and swords, and they leave him to Jesus. And Judas walks up and gives Jesus a kiss. And here's Jesus' words from Luke 22, verse 48. "Judas, would you betray the Son of Man with a kiss?" I remember years ago, Michael Card had a song called "Why?" And there was a stanza in there to talk about this betrayal. And why would Judas do this? This is what he's addressing. So listen to these words. Why did it have to be a friend who chose to betray the Lord? Why did he use a kiss to show them? That's not what a kiss is for. Only a friend can betray a friend. A stranger has nothing to gain. And only a friend comes close enough to ever cause so much pain. If you've ever been betrayed on a significant level, you know the pain that Jesus is going through here. Jesus knew what was going to happen. Often betrayal comes unbeknownst. We don't even know it. But there's great pain in betrayal. The closer the person is, the greater the pain. It's interesting that Michael Card says only a friend can betray a friend. Jesus uses this word. But let's jump over to John. In the last week of Jesus' life, there's also some teaching in John 15 about how Jesus considered his disciples. He's talking to the 12, so Judas is part of this. And this is what he says to the 12. "Greater love has no one than this, that one lay down his life for his friends." The word there, friends, is the Greek word philos. And philos is the idea of a family friend, someone close in relationship. So the greatest thing you can do, the greatest love, is one lay down his life for his friends, his philos. And Jesus says, "You are my friends if you do what I command you. No longer do I call you slaves, for the slave does not know what his master is doing. But I have called you friends, for all things that I have heard from my Father I have made known to you." So Jesus calls all his disciples friends, philos. Philos is a familial love, a family love, someone you're close to. You call philos, a friend. Well, at the betrayal, as is recorded in Matthew, Jesus also refers to Judas as a friend. Listen to what he says there in Matthew 26:49. Judas went to Jesus and said, "Hail, Rabbi," and kissed him. And Jesus said to him, "Friend, do what you have come for." And they came and laid hands on Jesus and seized him. Now, we saw that Jesus said, "You are my friends, no longer slaves, you're my friends," philos, a family friend, a close relationship. Here is a different word in Greek. Here it's a different word. In fact, it's only used 3 times in the New Testament, and all 3 times are in Matthew. The other 2 times it's used in stories Jesus is telling, where it's obvious the readers and the people in the story don't know the person's name. So it's simply a word you would use when you meet a stranger and you call him friend. Jesus has changed the terminology he addresses Judas with. First, he referred to him in John 15 as a philos, a close friend, like a family member. But it says there, "If you are my friends, you will do what I say." Well, clearly Judas didn't. So now at the betrayal, Jesus addresses him with a different Greek word that comes into English as friend. We just don't know it's different. Friend, do what you have come for. It shows a shift in the relationship of Judas to Jesus. And we know what happens to Judas. Judas is called the son of perdition. Listen to what Jesus says about Judas in Matthew 26, verse 24. He says this, "The Son of Man goes as it is written of him." So this has been predestined. We talked about that last Sunday. The Son of Man goes as it has been written of him, but woe to the man by whom the Son of Man is betrayed. Judas. It would have been better for that man if he had not been born. So that's Judas and the betrayal. Let's talk now about Peter and his denial. You know this story too. This is a very common, famous story also. All the disciples are telling Jesus, "We're with you. Whatever happens to you, we'll die with you, Jesus." And Jesus says, "No, you're all going to abandon me." Peter says, "I won't. I'll never abandon you. In fact, I will die with you, Jesus." And at that moment, I believe he meant it. But when it came down to brass tacks, whatever that phrase is, Peter denied him. In fact, Jesus said to him, "Peter, I tell you, tonight before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times. And you know the story. That's exactly what happened. Peter denied him 3 times. Well, Jesus predicted this. Luke tells the story. Jesus has been arrested, and he goes into the court of the high priest. And he's being tried by the high priest and the Sanhedrin's there. And Peter is over to the side, warming his hands over a fire. Just imagine today a 55-gallon drum or something. I know that's not what they had. And they're warming their hands. And there's all sorts of other servants around. And Jesus can see Peter. Peter can see Jesus. And Peter denies him 3 times. And one time it was a servant girl. He didn't have the courage to even say, "I believe in that man. I know that man." In fact, he cursed. He didn't use a cuss word. He took an oath. "I swear to God, I don't know that man." And it says in Luke that Jesus turned and looked at Peter. They got eye contact. Well, goes on, and listen to Matthew's description of this. Matthew 26:75. "And when he saw Jesus' eyes, and Peter remembered the saying of Jesus, 'Before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times.' And Peter went out and wept bitterly." Interesting. Judas regrets this also. He gives the 30 pieces of silver back. Peter went out and wept. Judas went and hung himself. Peter went with the disciples and mourned the death of their Savior. We know that Peter tells us in Acts chapter 1 that Judas went to his place. Talking about condemnation. But in the end of John, the last chapter of John, Jesus gives Judas a chance. Jesus gives Peter a chance to restore himself. 3 times, Jesus says, "Do you love me?" And Peter says, "Yes, Lord, I love you." And Jesus says, "Feed my sheep." 3 times. In the 3rd time, Peter says, "Lord, you know that I love you." But Peter denied him 3 times, and Jesus gave him a chance to restore himself 3 times. 2 very different people, 2 very different results, but both of them had to strike deep at the heart of Jesus and bring incredible pain. Yesterday we talked about how Jesus, in his humanity, was in deep anxiety and agony in the garden. And then what happens? Everyone who loves him flees from him. Peter denies him. Judas betrays him. And he goes to the cross fundamentally alone. Except, as we'll see tomorrow, with a few ladies. Ladies who stuck with him the entire time. So as you continue through this week, keep contemplating the incredible love our Savior has for us to go through all of this. We'll talk tomorrow about the death of Jesus Christ.